What if I told you there's a pattern hidden across 10 ancient sites on different continents? A pattern that suggests our ancestors weren't just stronger or luckier than us. They might have understood physics in a way we've completely forgotten. I'm not talking about aliens or conspiracy theories. I'm talking about acoustic levitation, harmonic resonance, the manipulation of stone through frequency. Sound crazy? Wait until you see site number 6, where the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. By the end of this video, you'll understand why one man in 1920s Florida said, "I know the secrets of the pyramids," and then proved it. 3 levels underground in Malta, there's a chamber called the Oracle Room. When you speak inside it, the entire structure vibrates at exactly 111 Hertz. Now here's what makes this terrifying. Modern neuroscience has proven that 111 Hertz temporarily shuts down the language center of your human brain and triggers altered states of consciousness. These Stone Age builders, with supposedly primitive tools, engineered an acoustic chamber that manipulates human neurology. They didn't just carve rock, they carved a frequency weapon, or a healing chamber, or a gateway to something we don't understand yet. And they did it 5,000 years before we discovered brainwaves. The question isn't how they carved it. The question is, how did they know what frequency to aim for? Everyone knows the Great Pyramid, but almost no one knows this. In 2018, electromagnetic engineers discovered that the King's Chamber resonates at exactly the same frequency as Earth's electromagnetic field. The granite walls amplify infrasound, sound waves below human hearing that can travel thousands of miles. The sarcophagus inside, it's tuned like a musical instrument. Strike it and it rings at F sharp, the same frequency as the entire pyramid structure. This wasn't a tomb. It was a resonance chamber, possibly broadcasting or receiving energy across vast distances using sound waves we're only beginning to understand. Ancient Egyptian texts called it the horizon machine. Maybe that wasn't metaphorical. And here's the kicker. Building it required mathematical knowledge of pi, phi, and Earth's dimensions, calculations that wouldn't officially be discovered for another 3,000 years. Pause this video right now and look at this stone. Those are drill holes. In diorite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, the holes are perfectly circular, perfectly smooth, with spiral grooves inside. To drill diorite like this today, you need diamond-tipped power tools spinning at thousands of RPM. The people who built Puma Punku had no written language, no wheels, and supposedly only copper chisels. But here's what really breaks physics. These H-shaped blocks interlock with tolerances of 0.5 millimeter. At 13,000 feet altitude, where oxygen is scarce and every breath is labor. Christopher Dunn, a master machinist with 40 years experience, analyzed these cuts. His conclusion, quote, "These stones were machined, not carved. The question is, with what?" Some researchers now believe the ancients used high-frequency sound to vibrate stone into a semi-liquid state. Crazy? Maybe, but show me another explanation that fits the evidence. In 1950, an earthquake devastated Cusco, Peru. Colonial Spanish buildings crumbled, modern structures collapsed, but the ancient walls of Sacsayhuamán, built from 300-ton stones with no mortar, didn't move a millimeter. Each stone has anywhere from 8 to 12 sides. Each side fits its neighbor so precisely you can't slide a razor blade between them. And remember, these aren't regular blocks, they're polygonal. Every single joint is a unique 3-dimensional puzzle. Spanish chroniclers in the 1500s wrote that they believed the Incas had a herb that could soften stone. Modern geologists laugh at this. But here's what they can't laugh at. No civilization has successfully replicated this construction method using Stone Age tools. We literally cannot do today what they did then. Unless sound could temporarily alter the molecular structure of stone. Make it pliable, shape it like clay, then lock it back into place with perfect atomic bonding, stronger than any mortar. There's your earthquake resistance. The foundation of Baalbek contains 3 stones called the trilithon. Each weighs approximately 1,200 tons. But there's a 4th stone still in the quarry nearby. It's called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. It weighs 1,650 tons, and it was cut free from the bedrock, ready to move. Here's the problem. The largest mobile crane in the world today, the Liebherr LR 13000, maxes out at 3,000 tons. But only with special rigging, reinforced ground, and a massive counterweight system. The trilithon stones were moved uphill, half a mile, and placed 30 feet in the air with millimeter precision. No rigging marks, no ramps found, no wheels. The Roman historian Pliny called Baalbek the greatest structure ever built by human hands. But the Romans didn't build the foundation, they built on top of it. Even they didn't know who moved these stones or how. Acoustic levitation researcher John Stuart Reid has demonstrated that standing sound waves can create acoustic pressure strong enough to levitate small objects. What if the ancients scaled this technology up? What if they had acoustic devices, now lost, that could neutralize gravity itself? Suddenly, the megalithic sites around the world start looking like a connected network of acoustic engineers. Angkor Wat covers the same area as Manhattan. It contains over 5 million tons of sandstone, transported 25 miles through dense jungle and swamps, and every single measurement encodes astronomical data. The temple's 5 towers represent the peaks of Mount Meru, the Hindu axis of the universe. But here's what's wild. When archaeoastronomers overlaid a star map from 10th of 500 BC, the temple layout perfectly mirrors the constellation Draco, not from the year it was built, from 8,000 years earlier. The same pattern appears at Giza, at Teotihuacan, and at dozens of other ancient sites worldwide. They're all building star maps frozen in stone, commemorating the same ancient date. What happened in 10,500 BC that multiple civilizations felt compelled to memorialize forever? The canals at Angkor Wat are aligned to solstice sunrises. The causeways encode the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle. These builders weren't just religious, they were astronomers working on a timescale we can barely comprehend. The Aztecs called it Teotihuacan, the place where men become gods. But they didn't build it. They found it abandoned, already ancient. Engineer Hugh Harleston Jr. surveyed the entire complex in the 1970s. He discovered that the distances between the pyramids, plazas, and temples are proportional to the orbital distances of the planets in our solar system. The temple of the sun equals Mercury, the temple of the moon equals Venus, and so on, all the way to Pluto, which wasn't officially discovered until 1930. Beneath the temple of the feathered serpent, archaeologists found pools of liquid mercury, thousands of gallons. Mercury is highly reflective and conducts electricity. What were they doing with it? And here's the strangest detail. The entire city is covered in a layer of mica, a mineral used today in electronics for insulation and capacitors. This wasn't decoration, this was infrastructure for something we don't understand. Teotihuacan might have been an energy device, converting astronomical alignments and Earth frequencies into something. Power? Communication? Consciousness alteration? We don't know. But calling it just a temple is like calling a nuclear reactor just a building. Everything you learned about human history is wrong. For decades, the timeline went like this. First agriculture, then settlements, then religion, then civilization. Göbekli Tepe flips that entire sequence upside down. This site is 12,000 years old, built by hunter-gatherers who supposedly had no organization, no architecture, no reason to build monuments. Yet they carved 20-ton T-shaped pillars decorated with precise animal reliefs and astronomical symbols, then deliberately buried the entire complex and walked away. Why build something that advanced and then hide it? The pillars track the Summer Triangle constellation. They mark the position of the sky in 10,950 BC, right around the time of the Younger Dryas impact event, an asteroid or comet impact that caused global catastrophe and mass extinction. What if Göbekli Tepe is a warning monument? A time capsule built by a civilization that saw the destruction coming and wanted to make sure humanity would remember. The site is only 5% excavated. Ground-penetrating radar shows at least 20 more circular complexes still underground. Whatever's buried there might rewrite everything we think we know about prehistory. Imagine carving a cathedral out of a mountain. Not building up with blocks, carving down, removing everything that isn't the temple. That's Kailasa. 400,000 tons of solid basalt removed. Intricate pillars, bridges, sculptures, all carved from the same continuous rock. No structural supports added, because you can't add supports to something carved from one piece. If you made a single mistake, if one column cracked, the entire structure would collapse. There are no mistakes. Archaeologists estimate this took 150 years using thousands of workers with chisels. But here's the math problem. To remove 400,000 tons of rock in 150 years requires removing 7 tons per day, every single day, for a century and a half. With hand chisels. That's not just improbable, it's thermodynamically absurd. The workers would have spent more calories chiseling than they could consume in food. So what's the real explanation? Indian metallurgist Ashish Kothial has proposed that ancient builders used an acidic paste made from plant extracts. Apply it to stone, wait a few hours, and the rock surface becomes soft enough to carve like butter. Sound insane? We already know the Egyptians used natron salts to soften and shape limestone. Different chemistry, same concept. Maybe the impossible engineering isn't impossible. Maybe we just lost the recipe. 92 artificial islands, built on coral reefs, connected by canals, walls made of hexagonal basalt columns weighing up to 50 tons each. Here's the mystery. There is no basalt quarry on the island of Pohnpei. The nearest source is 11 miles away, across open ocean. No boats, no wheels, no metallurgy, just stone tools and, according to local legend, something else. The islanders say their ancestors sang the stones into flight. They chanted specific frequencies, and the basalt floated through the air like birds. Western archaeologists dismissed this as primitive mythology, until researchers started testing it. In 2014, acoustic levitation experiments at the University of Tokyo successfully levitated small objects using ultrasonic standing waves. In 2021, Swiss researchers levitated a 2-gram steel ball using nothing but sound. The physics is real. The question is, did ancient builders scale it up? Because if sound can move stone, then suddenly Baalbek makes sense. Puma Punku makes sense. The Trilithon makes sense. Coral Castle makes sense. Which brings us to the most important site on this list. In 1923, a 5-foot-tall Latvian immigrant named Ed Leedskalnin bought land in Florida City. Over the next 28 years, working alone, he quarried, carved, transported, and erected over 1,100 tons of coral limestone by himself, at night with no machinery. He built towers, furniture, a sundial accurate to the minute, and a 9-ton revolving gate so perfectly balanced it turns with a fingertip. When neighbors asked how he did it, he said only, "I have discovered the secrets of the pyramids. I know how the Egyptians and the ancient builders of Peru, Yucatan, and Asia, with only primitive tools, raised and set in place blocks of stone weighing many tons." Witnesses reported seeing him singing to the stones. He had a device made of wire coils and magnets, now lost. He worked only at night, by lamplight, and chased away anyone who came near. When the county built a highway through his property, Ed moved the entire coral castle, all 1,100 tons, 10 miles north. A truck driver helped him load the stones at night. He was never allowed to see how Ed loaded them. Ed just told him when to return and pick up the next load. After Ed died in 1951, engineers examined the 9-ton gate. It rotates on a single metal rod, perfectly centered through the stone's center of gravity. The tolerances are so precise that modern drilling equipment couldn't replicate them. In 1986, the gate stopped turning. It took a 40-ton crane and 6 men to lift it off the pivot. They found the metal rod had rusted through. They replaced it with a modern engineered bearing. When they put the gate back, it no longer turned smoothly. The modern bearing was worse than Ed's 1920s pivot. They never figured out his secret, but we know he had one. Because he did the impossible, and that means the impossible can be done. So here's what we know. 10 ancient sites, spread across 5 continents, built by cultures with no contact, all demonstrating precision that defies their supposed technological level. All built using stone that responds to vibration, all aligned to astronomy and mathematics we discovered thousands of years later. All associated with legends of sound, frequency, and levitation. And one modern man, with no formal education, proved that one person can move megalithic stones using lost knowledge. Maybe the ancients weren't primitive. Maybe they understood that matter and energy are the same thing, that everything vibrates, that sound at the right frequency can restructure physical reality. We call it magic because we forgot the science. But the evidence is still here, waiting in stone. If this changed how you see ancient history, hit that subscribe up button, because we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video from Should I Go?